yeah, just let me share my screen before you start the recording.
Oh, I was speaking. I've started. I didn't know I was on mute.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐓. I am a BA and a product owner, and I will be taking the course today on stakeholder management. Like I was saying before, this is a core part of business analysis. You can't do anything without business without stakeholder management. So it's very important that we understand what it is, what our role is with regards to stakeholder management and all of that. So it's going to be material dense, but I'll go really quickly just to cover as much as possible. But if you have any questions, I want to try something. If you have any questions, you can interrupt me because I almost feel that by the time we wait till the end of the session, you may have forgotten. So I won't be able to see your hand. I don't know if Damisola will be here to help me, or Eniola or Augusta. If you see anyone raise up their hands or someone drops a message in the chat or a question in the chat, you can interrupt me and ask the question. I'll respond and then we can continue. I'll stop intermittently to ask if you have questions. But if you do, just speak up, unmute, speak up. Uzo, I have a question and I'll take it. Okay? Let's try that and see how effective that will be. All right. So moving right along. Yeah. Basically, try and do it this way. This is what we are going to discuss. So we're going to introduce stakeholder management. We're going to go over the key terms and definitions. I'll touch on a number of key terms and definitions. For some, I will be able to go in depth and tell you a bit about it, but for others, I won't be able to. It's a very dense topic and we only have limited time, but I'll try as much as possible to at least give you some definitions of what they are. And then we'll go to the stakeholder lifecycle overview, stakeholder identification, analysis, engagement, communication, collaborative techniques, and tools and templates. One of the things I've found with regards to things like templates is there are many different templates for many different projects. It's never the same for many different organizations. It's never really the same. But I kind of want to show you what some of these templates look like. And we can talk about it as well. I think I'll show you about 2 or 3 different ones and explain some of the differences and, all of that. So I'll share some of that with you. All right. So we're going to start at the very beginning. Who exactly is a stakeholder? Yeah. I'm sure you've heard this term before. It's part of the lexicon for BAs. Stakeholders are, in fact, some people don't even like hearing stakeholders now. They want to, they're trying to look for other words and synonyms to describe stakeholders. But stakeholder is the official term, and we use it a lot because it's basically what we do. So a stakeholder is any individual, group, or organization that can affect or be affected by your project. Yeah. This one even says it perceives itself to be affected by the project decision or change or whatever it is you're working on. So it's an individual, it's a group, it's an organization, sometimes it's a government body that can affect your project, that can be affected by your project, or maybe it even believes it can be affected by either the project, the decision you're making, or like the change that you're effecting. Okay. So there are loads of different kinds of stakeholders. We have internal stakeholders and we have external stakeholders. So for the internal stakeholders, employees, customers, I beg your pardon, employees, executives, project team members, anyone within the organization is an internal stakeholder. Then people that are external stakeholders are people that are outside the organization but that still fall under this category. So you have clients, customers, suppliers, partners, investors, creditors, community groups, NGOs. It depends. Yeah, the list is unending. So the key characteristics is that they have interests in your project, they can influence your project, and they have expectations based on the outcome of your project. Yeah, these words are really different because you are really important because you're going to use them during your whole stakeholder management journey. Okay, so they can either help you or hinder you. Okay, their support or resistance can make or break your project. Let me just put it that way. Yeah, and sometimes they may even hold formal authority. For example, when it comes to regulators, they may not be part of your organization, but when there is a law or a regulation or a policy that is in place that affects your organization, it affects your organization. There's nothing you can do. Yeah. So, for example, if your organization is regulated, maybe in the financial sector, and they're regulated by the financial regulatory body, they're a charity director, regulated by Charity Commission, they're in the healthcare sector, all insurance, all of these different sectors, they all have regulatory bodies. So you can't just go and be doing things the way you like. You have to basically be subject to that regulatory body. That's just one example. Okay, we're going to try and go really fast. So stakeholder management basically is the set of techniques, yeah, that we can use to make sure that we can get positive outcomes and try and minimize the effect of negative outcomes from stakeholders. We know that stakeholders can affect us positively or negatively. So stakeholder management are things you can do to get positive outcomes or make sure that the stakeholder influences you positively and try and minimize the effect of negative influences of the stakeholders. So you have to manage those relationships. A lot of stakeholders are people. Let me just put it that way. So honestly, the shorthand of this is people management. You have to understand how to manage people. Yeah. Obviously, like I said, there are organizations or regulatory bodies and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still people, partners, customers, suppliers, people management. If you struggle with managing people, then you're going to struggle with stakeholder management. But again, the one thing I really like as well is that, like I said, there is no skill or technique, there's no skill or competency that you're being asked to do within the business analysis profession that there aren't techniques to help you do it. So even when we say, okay, you have to know how to manage your stakeholders, there are ways to do it. And these are some of the things that when you're either going on your interviews or you put on your CV, they're going to ask you about. How do you manage stakeholders in many different ways? So you have to not only know how to do it, but be conscious of the techniques that can help you do it positively and minimize the negative effects. So the techniques we're talking about is how do you identify your stakeholders? What are these stakeholders? How can you identify them? How do you analyze, once you've identified them, how do you analyze them? Which one has a positive influence, which one has a negative influence, which one doesn't really have that much influence? They're just interested in your project, they don't really have influence one way or the other, so they are just interested. Maybe they have high interest or low interest. Then once you're able to identify and analyze, then you start planning. You have to plan. What is your plan for stakeholder management? Yeah, you don't just go and start managing people. You have to have a plan. How are you going to engage with them? Then once you've agreed on your plan or you've outlined your plan, you've created your plan, then you start engaging with them. You start talking with them, reaching out to them, setting up meetings with them, whatever it is you need to do, that's fine. Then you monitor them. You basically monitor the stakeholders you have because it's a very fluid um, um, process. There are people that maybe today they are in a position of authority or power. Tomorrow they change jobs. Maybe today someone is the head of a particular group or business unit that affects your project, and then tomorrow they move to another unit and someone else comes. So you have to basically keep monitoring all these positions or people and know when their status change. Yeah, so it's not just a one and done thing. That's why there's a life cycle. Yeah, there's a stakeholder management life cycle that we're going to talk about. So it's a continuous thing. You identify, analyze, plan, engage, monitor, identify. You just keep going round and round. Okay. So why exactly does this matter? I've talked a bit about this. Yeah. Um, you're able to set expectations. One of the things that hinder stakeholder management or affect stakeholder management, either positively or negatively, is stakeholder expectations. What are their expectations? Do you understand? If you meet their expectations, you understand what the expectations are, you meet it, they'll be your friend for life. If you don't understand what it is, you ignore it, or maybe even understand what it is and you don't meet it, you get resistance. So you have to um know what the expectations are. Sometimes you get to set the expectations. So someone comes with really high expectations or really low expectations, and you agree on what our expectations are. Like, it's I love that you're interested in this project, though, and you want it to be really, really big and everything, but this is the only thing we're able to deliver. So please, let's manage your expectations. So you can set the expectations, and then you build trust, collaboration, rapport. Remember, these are relationships. So a lot of the things you find regarding stakeholder management are basically relationship building techniques. Yeah. Obviously, it's in the context of your project or the change, transformation project you're handling. But basically, that's what it is. Okay. So once you understand good stakeholder management, you're able to establish mutual understanding and respect. They trust you. They know that you get where they're coming from, and they can trust you to handle and deliver whatever it is that happens. Yeah, they get to know you, they get to trust you. You get their buy-in. One of the things that is a project killer is when a key stakeholder doesn't have buy-in in that project for whatever reason. They're just very risk averse. They've been burned in the past, and they don't just want to get involved in this thing again. That's how you said you were going to do ABCD before and it did not happen, or something happened and something, don't involve me again, I'm not interested. Meanwhile, this person is a key stakeholder. You need their input. You can't just ignore them. Yeah, so you have to be able to get their buy-in, get them to believe in the project and believe in its success and the change that it's going to implement. Yeah, because you need for them to make decisions, either for, or usually for, or maybe, yeah, you need for them to make key decisions and keep the project moving. If they don't, the project will be stalled. The project won't move forward because you need someone to make a key decision and the person is just not interested. Yeah. So again, you get to identify who your engaged stakeholders are, and they can be your champions, right? Because sometimes you're not in every room. As a BA, you may understand that some people in leadership positions have say over your project, but you won't be in that room when they're talking about it. So when you have meetings with them, you can make sure that you get them as a champion, get them to understand the reason for this project. So when they're in that room, they'll be speaking positively about the project. If anyone comes with something negative, you know that that person who is your champion will speak up and say, oh, this and this is what I heard about the project, or this is why we need it, blah, 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 blah. And that person's opinion can sway other key stakeholders and get buy-in from all those other people. So you have to be able to identify who your champion is and then build a very good relationship with them. Yeah. You have to, when you know how to, when you know how to, you understand stakeholder management and you know how to do it properly, you make sure that your project goes smoothly from all the way from planning to initiation to implementation to delivery. And then before you know it, it becomes business as usual. So it becomes part of the process of the organization. So you make sure that your project is able, there's a smooth transition. Sometimes people don't like change. It's like, this is the way we've always done it. So even when you have a very good project, getting them to use it might be a problem, the new product or the new service. So understanding the key stakeholders and getting their buy-in, it helps with smooth transition into the business as usual for the organization. So I've talked about support. Then when you talk about delays and costs, projects are budgeted. They are very time boxed. You have a specific time with a specific budget. If there are delays, it will cost more money. It will cost more. Yeah, no one wants a project to be delayed. And if you don't manage your stakeholders properly, you could delay the project, and it could result in additional costs. And it just generally makes your life easier. Who wants the stress of having to deal with difficult and challenging stakeholders? You may not want the stress, but chances are you're going to have to deal with them. So it's better to know how to manage your stakeholders very well. And when you have difficult or challenging stakeholders, you also know how to deal with them as well. So these are some key terms and definitions. I already told you who a stakeholder is: any person, group, or organization that is affected by or influences a project, right? Then you have key stakeholders. Okay, so not all stakeholders are not born equal. Yeah, there are different levels. Okay, so you know that this person is a stakeholder, but then you have a key stakeholder. That person, hey, if the project sponsor says this project is not happening again, it doesn't matter what the other stakeholder says, the project has ended. So you have decision makers, people that can influence or have authority over that project. They are your key stakeholders. Those ones, your eye must never leave them. You must continually be dealing with them every time. You cannot let them out of your, like, hey, you have to carry them along. You have to keep them informed. You have to make sure you have their buy-in. The other people, you can, just be, you know, there's a way to manage them. But for your key stakeholders, hey, and you have to know how to identify these people. You may not know, and you just be ignoring one key stakeholder. The person will tell you, hey, oh, by the time it's now time to have a decision, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What? I don't know what you're talking about. You didn't carry them along. You didn't tell them anything. You didn't invite them to any of the meetings. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know how far the project has gone. You don't want that to happen. As a BA, yeah, if your key stakeholder is chasing you to ask you how far with the project, it's not good. It is not good at all. I have one of the BAs that just graduated before you. I think two times. So last year, late last year, they graduated late last year. So they just got a job, yeah, and you know, working in a new environment, all of that. So I was just asking how is the project going and all of that, and she was like, that my manager, he keeps sending messages and he keeps asking me, so how's it going, what's happening, that every time it disturbs me, breaks my flow. I want to work on the project, and he's every time just asking, so what's happening, what have you done now, who did you talk to, all of that. And I'm like, what? You can't allow that to happen. Set up a weekly meeting with that key stakeholder every week, because they are being asked what is happening. For them to be asked, they're not just asking because they want to ask. Your job, your success in their job is tied to yours. So you can't just let them be chasing you. No. Set up a weekly meeting with this stakeholder every week. You tell them, okay, this is what I've done so far. This is what I'm planning to do. These are the people I've spoken to. This is where we're at. These are the documents. You create a document, you share it with them. You have like a folder, a shared folder. So when you create your requirements or whatever you create, you share it with them, all of that. Be the one giving them information. Do not allow them chase you. Don't do that. Yeah. So if you have people asking you how far with the project, you're not managing that stakeholder well at all. Okay. So that's key stakeholders. They're very, very important. All right. In some JDs, you find they'll tell you stakeholder management, they'll tell you key stakeholder management. So like, do you know how to manage people in the C-suite, all the CEOs, CFOs, heads of departments? Do you know how to manage them? Because managing them is different from managing the other people. So yeah, let me move on from that. That's really important. Okay, so you have the stakeholder life cycle. So these are the stages of your engagement, stakeholder management. We're doing that identification. How do you identify who your stakeholders are? Analyzing them. What are their needs, influence, and interests? Engaging them, building relationships, managing the expectations. Then you have your products like your stakeholder map or your matrix. That is the tool, the visual tool for you to actually document who those stakeholders are and then group them by power, influence, interest. Yeah, there's a grid. I'll show that to you. Okay. In fact, there's a power interest grid. So sometimes they're interchangeable. Yeah. So it says the power is a matrix, and you have stakeholder matrix. So sometimes they're interchangeable. The power interest grid is the stakeholder matrix. Yeah. So it's just to categorize people, stakeholders, not just people, stakeholders, to be able to, so you can tell at a glance. It's a visual representation of not just your stakeholders, but what their influence levels of influence is, the power they wield, the influence they have, the interest they have. Okay. Then the other key definitions are your stakeholder communication plan. Remember, I told you what's your plan. Yeah, you have a communication plan. Yeah, go ahead.
Aniela has her hand up.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Aniela.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh.
So I wanted to ask about the key stakeholders. Are there specific ones for BAs that we need to take note of right now, or will it depend on the projects that we are working on? Or are there some that are like maybe constant, that they are always key stakeholders?
So it depends on your project, but your project sponsor is your key stakeholder. Who is the sponsor of that project? Your sponsor is the person who initiated that project, who is funding that project, who has the say so on whether that project is going forward or not.
Okay.
So everybody recognizes the authority of that project sponsor. But remember, sometimes the project sponsor can have their own bosses as well. So even though you have a project sponsor who is a key stakeholder, they can answer to maybe the heads of their own departments, or maybe the CEO, or all of those sorts of things. So it usually depends on the project, but usually you start with your key. Who's your project sponsor? Who is your project owner? That's another, or your product owner. Sorry, your product owner. That's another key stakeholder, because your product owner is one of the people who, a lot of times when you have a product owner, you don't have direct access to the business. The product owner represents the business. So that automatically makes them a key stakeholder. You can be in a project that doesn't have a product owner. So you are the one who is liaising with the business stakeholder. So you have direct contact with all the different stakeholders. But usually once there's a product owner, that's product owner is the one liaising with the business, and then you're liaising with them. So they become a key stakeholder for you, because they are the ones giving you the requirements, they're the ones approving the requirements, they're the ones giving you the direction. So what they say, you have to be very attentive to what they're saying, because they're speaking for the business. Then again, like I said, so these are some, once you identify this person is a product sponsor, project owner, then there are some other very key people. When you're in a product environment, you have to understand. Again, we'll talk about power and interest and all of that. So again, it's also driven by the project as well. So you now have to ask questions. No one is just expecting you to just know automatically. You ask questions. Who are the key stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders? You ask questions, and then by the time it is you're talking with them, and you find out, sometimes you find out what their job description is, what their relation is to your project, then you are the one to now categorize them, and I'll get to that. So you can actually determine who is a key stakeholder in your project as well. So apart from the ones that are very obvious, you will also need to be able to identify them and classify them. And when you now put them on the grid, remember we talked about this stakeholder matrix.
Yeah.
By the time you put them in the grid, you understand who has the highest power, who has the highest influence, who has the highest interest. Interest is a very funny one, but it's usually power and influence. The people that have the greatest power and influence automatically become your key stakeholders. There's no, if there are some people that and then for example, let's say a regulator, they may not even be part of your project, but if you go run afoul of that regulator, that project is not going anywhere. It will be against the law. Do you understand? So that regulator becomes a key stakeholder. So you as the BA, you have to be able to remember one of the key, we'll talk about it, or it's even here, stakeholder identification. You have to be able to identify them. So sometimes no one will really tell you. You can tell sometimes you can't. So you now have to be able to identify where their power and influence is. And then you now decide, okay, because of how much power this person has and how much influence this person has, then they're automatically a key stakeholder. Yeah, so
Yes.
you're the one to make that distinction most of the time. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right, cool. Any other questions before we move on? No? All right, cool. Thank you for that question. I really like engagement, so I appreciate that. All right, cool. So we're talking about your stakeholder communication plan. So once you've identified, analyzed, then you now have to plan. And it's not just a plan that will just be around, because a lot of BAs, sometimes we create documents and we keep it to ourselves. It's not really for us. The documents we create are project documents. So you have to make them available to your project team. So for example, you can create a project plan and your project manager will use your communication plan to say, okay, this is how we're communicating with the stakeholders. This is how we're relating to them, blah, 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 all of that. You don't even have to do it on your own. You do it in collaboration. Everything we do is in collaboration with other people. So once you have a plan and you create your communication plan documentation, then that's basically how everyone kind of relates to the stakeholder. Influence, I've talked about that. Stakeholder expectation. What are their needs? What do they need? What are their concerns? Yeah. Again, I was talking to another BA who started a job as well, and then they were like, "Oh gosh, every stakeholder elicitation I've had so far, it's almost like I'm their therapist. That they just come and be telling me, oh, the system that they're working with is so annoying, it's so frustrating. And they're just pouring out their woes, pouring out their woes, pouring out their woes. I want to get to the elicitation. I want to get, and in my mind, I was like, but that's the elicitation. That's part of it. When they are, a lot of times it's very difficult for BAs to get people to tell you what their pain points are. That's why it's a pain point. It's paining them. It's choking them. It's frustrating them. It's making their lives miserable. That's the problem you want to solve. You can never discount what their needs are, what their concerns are, because if you ignore it, you can bring in a system that either doesn't solve that need or maybe still does the same thing. And they're like, but we told you this thing was a problem now, how far? Or when you identify what the problem is and what the need is, you know that whatever system you're bringing in has to solve that problem and make sure that that pain point is no longer there. So don't discountenance when people are telling you this is why my job is so hard, or if we did it this way, it would make it so much easier. The BA was feeling like a therapist, but that's actually where you get to identify what their needs are. What is the need they have? What is that concern? You document it. You put it as part of the problem statement. You put it as part of the pain points, and it's part of their requirements. The system should be able to solve that problem. If it doesn't, then you've left out a key requirement. Okay, so satisfaction, again, if you're able to do that, then imagine how satisfied they will be. They will love you. They will ask for you to come back. I want to work with this BA. My goodness, look at what they did the last time. They sorted us out. So when you meet those needs, when you can't meet the needs you don't know exist. So you identify what the needs are, and then you're able to meet it, right? And people are coming with example, let's do this, because the things they're suggesting does not meet that need. You already know that this thing will not work. Let's be realistic. This thing will not solve that, because you know what the pain point is. So please, that is very, very key. The thing that pains somebody or the thing that people love about their job, those two things, always take note of them when you're talking to stakeholders. All right, so we now have our RACI, okay? So this is a chart that tells you all the different tasks you have in relation to that project, who is responsible for it, who is accountable for it, who should be consulted, and who should be informed, okay? There's actually one, I'll talk about it as well, that has an S. So it's RACI, but it's RASCI, and the S is for supported. Who is going to support, that? So they may not be directly responsible, but their support is needed. But normally the common one is the RACI, okay? And then you now have your stakeholder register, where you're able to document all your stakeholders, all these people that have an interest that can either affect or be affected by your project or the service. You have to have a stakeholder list or a register where you document all of them, okay? So those are the key terms. Moving right along, you have the different types. I've mentioned it before, but these are some of the main categories. Okay, so you have your primary. Remember, we did internal and external. We're coming there again anyway, but now this is a broader list, and it is who are the primary stakeholders. So these ones, they are directly impacted, or they directly impact your project or product or service, or whatever it is. So these are customers, end users, your project sponsors, the business owners. Okay, so they directly interact in one way or the other with the solution, either as the users or the recipients. They're the benefactors, the people that are, the recipients of the service. Then you have the secondary people, like I've talked about, your regulators. You have your external suppliers, the legal teams, external partners, all of that. So they're influenced by the project, but they're not directly involved in the execution. Then you now have your internal stakeholders that are always part of the organization. So you have all these different units: finance department, HR, IT, digital, all of that, marketing. And then you now have the external stakeholders, are all your government bodies, your vendors, your industry, regulators, and all of that. So they're outside the organization, but they're impacted by the project or service or product. Okay. So we talked about the life cycle, right? So again, it's a cyclical. I mentioned that stakeholder management is not just one and done. It's continuous. It just keeps going. Okay. So you have to understand what the cycle is. And I'm very I'm very conscious of this particular topic, because a lot of times when during your interview, or maybe you're having a discussion with I'm trying to point you, especially towards interviews and things like that, because it's important that you know some of these things. If you come into the advanced team, obviously you learn them, but if not, then I kind of still want to point you out to them as well. Normally they'll ask you a question about stakeholder management. So how do you deal with a difficult stakeholder? What's your communication plan? They'll ask you an interview question about stakeholders. How you answer that question lets them know how broad your knowledge is. When they ask you a question about stakeholders, they may just be asking you one particular thing, but that particular thing is part of the stakeholder life cycle. They can tell you, how do you identify your stakeholders, or how do you engage with stakeholders? It's just one part of your stakeholder life cycle. If you start the question by saying, as a BA, I'm always very conscious of the stakeholder life cycle. I'm very keen on, I know how to identify, analyze. I have a plan on how to engage with them. I engage with them and I monitor them. Before you even start answering the question they asked you about identification or engagement, but you've told them about the life cycle. So you understand that what they've told you is just one aspect of the entire life cycle. So you start the interview, you start your response by saying, I know what the life cycle is. I am conscious of it. I work with it. I use it all the time. And because I know this one aspect of it. So just know that chances are they'll never ask you about stakeholder management broadly. It could be part of your JD, but if they want to ask you an interview question, they'll just pick one aspect of it, maybe stakeholder engagement. How do you identify your stakeholders? How do you work with difficult stakeholders? They'll just pick one question, but you have to know that it's just an aspect of the whole life cycle. Yeah. And apart from that, when you now get into the role, you have to follow this life cycle. You can't work with people you don't know are part of the project, and no one's just going to give you a list. Yeah, they could maybe point out one or two people, but you have to know how to identify, use those one or two people to identify other people, and before you know it, you have like a whole broad list of stakeholders. Because as you can see, there are many stakeholders. Okay, there are very rarely few stakeholders. Okay, so this is the life cycle. Like I said, it changed over time. So even that last bit where you have to monitor is very important. Okay, so and based on what aspect you're in, it drives your activities. If you're in the process of identifying, there's certain activities you do. If you're in the process of analyzing, there's certain activities you do, and so on and so forth. We'll try and touch as much of them as we can. We may not be able to touch all of them, but they're all key part of the stakeholder life cycle. Okay. And like I said, it's from the inception of the project till the end. Okay. So this is your part one. Yeah. Firstly, before you can identify who your stakeholders are, you have to understand what the needs of the project is. Remember, your stakeholders are directly tied to the project needs or the business needs or what the project is solving, the service is providing. If you don't understand that, then it will be very difficult for you to identify your stakeholder or move forward. Let me just put it that way. Yeah. So what is the need that the project is solving? What is the objective? What's your problem statements? What are the pain points that you want to resolve? What are the opportunities you want to take advantage of? You have to understand that firstly before you start talking about stakeholders. What is this project about? What need are we meeting? Okay. Then once you do that, then you're now able to identify who is essential to making that thing happen. You know what it is the business need is. Then you can now start asking the question, who do I need as part of this project to make this thing happen? They may be aware, they may not be aware of it. Most times for a lot of stakeholders, apart from like the project sponsor, you're the one informing them that there's a project that exists. They're just going about their business. They don't know, they don't care. They have other things they're doing. It's not part of their job. But because they will be directly impacted or they have direct impact to your project, you're the one that is going to go and meet them to say, oh, we have this project we're doing. Oh, this is what is going to address, the need is going to solve, the service is going to provide, the product we're going to create. And this is how it relates to you. You're either directly related to it in a particular way. So you have to be able to make that correlation. Yeah. And then introduce the project to them. And, once you're able to do that, then you can move to the next part. So once you identify them, then you now analyze, who their influence, their power, their interest, their attitude. You're the one to look at your list of stakeholders and analyze them, right? And I'll come to that a bit later. But there's a BA who did stakeholder analysis, and she puts rightly so, she didn't make any mistake. She identified the different, what they call it, interest, power, influence grid. And during the project, I think it was a QA, I can't remember who it was, that, they are stakeholders, but they are really low. They have low influence, low and low power. So they are very low in the power influence grade. The QA took offense. Was like, what do you mean I'm low? So I'm going to tell you how to get around that. But there are certain people that we're not saying that they're not essential to the project. We're just saying that if the project sponsor decides that this project is not happening, you and I can't say anything about it. Do you understand? So in that aspect, they don't have as much influence as the other people. That doesn't mean you're going to put it in their face to say, oh, you're low. You don't have any influence. You don't have any, whatever power in this grid. You're very low. You don't really do. No one wants to hear that. It almost means that you don't rate me now. You don't take me for anything. So there are certain ways we can get around that. But again, you have to analyze your stakeholders once you identify them. Then once you do that, you start planning. Okay, how am I going to engage with these stakeholders? How am I going to relate with them? How am I going to initiate contact with them and then keep talking to them afterwards? So you have to have a plan. You don't just do it willy-nilly. Because when you do that, then you're going to miss something. You always have to have a plan. What's your plan? Once you have a plan, you follow it, but not just you, the other team members, your project manager, the other people, they follow that plan as well. For example, a lot of in your present project now, you're the one who deals with the product owner directly. Your team members take their stare from you. many of them don't deal with the product owner, so they don't really have that connection to the product owner. So maybe sometimes they have an idea, maybe we should do this, and you're the one to say, oh, no, that's not really how, we relate to the product owner. This is how we relate to the product owner. And they're like, oh, I want to go and call the product owner to say blah blah blah. No, there's a process, there's a plan. This is our plan. This is how we communicate with the product owner. If you do that, they may not, it may not result in the way you want it to result. This is how we engage with this particular stakeholder. So even in your current project, you can see how once you have a plan, once you have a way that you relate to a particular stakeholder, you drive that engagement for the rest of the team. It's not like they can't ever talk to the product owner, or they can, no. But because you understand that relationship and you guys have a plan of maybe, oh, let's have a meeting with the product owner. We want to call them to our daily stand-up. No. We have edition meetings. You can attend those meetings. That's the plan we have. So I hope that gives you maybe a real world example of when you have a plan of engagement. Then, sometimes it's reports. Some stakeholders just want regular reports. Sometimes it's emails. You have a meeting and you email stakeholders and you just copy them. They're just copied. They're not even the people it's to, but they're just carrying them along. Sometimes you may want to engage with them directly. So you have to have a plan. All right. And then once you have your plan, you effect your plan, you start doing it, you engage with them. Monitoring is not here, but don't forget the monitoring aspect of your stakeholder life cycle. Okay. All right, now let's go into the very first one, which is identification. Okay. So I've talked about it, so I'll kind of go through this really quickly. It's you have to be able to identify your stakeholders, and the way you do is by understanding the project need, because once you understand that, then you know that these are the people that will be impacted by that project or by the solution. All right, let me not repeat it again, because you have to be able to identify your stakeholders, so you make sure that everybody's needs and concerns are being met, all the perspectives are being heard and addressed. Okay, so a project I was working on, right? It started off really, really small, and it was just me, the project sponsor, and they would tell me, okay, you need to talk to this stakeholder. I'll talk to them. We talk to the business stakeholders, the users, the customers. We're talking to them. After a while, someone, came to the meeting and was like, oh, have you spoken to HR? Or like, oh, no. They're like, oh, so HR, they need to be aware of what is happening because blah, 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 blah. Went to HR. HR said, actually, have you spoken to the people managers? Because this has to do with people within the organization. So you need to, we went to that one. Oh, have you spoken to digital? Because this is a digital solution and everything. And they need, and like, yeah, we've spoken to this particular, oh, yeah, that's great. But there's another digital team that you need to contact with. And that's how every stakeholder we went to. In fact, as a BA, right, it should be your MO to say, even when you identify one stakeholder, right, your product sponsor tells you this is a key stakeholder. When you're sending an email to initiate contact with them, to reach out to them to say, hello, my name is Uzo. I'm the BA for this particular project. This is what this project is about. I was given your name by the project sponsor, blah, 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 blah. I'd like to have a, discussion with you to talk about the project and your requirements and all of that. When you finish doing all that, introduction or all that, writing your email, at the bottom, you're like, if there is anyone else who you think has interest in this project or who you'd like to invite, let me know so I can invite them, or you can forward this email to them. Bring them in. You must always be open to the fact that one stakeholder can lead you to another one, can lead you to another one, can lead you to another, can lead you. And before you know it, you want to be able to get all the perspectives. I worked with a project manager once, and by the time we start getting a lot of stakeholders, she was like, we're talking to too many people though. I think, do we need to talk to these other people? I'm like, let's err on the side of caution. I don't mind having a meeting with these people and finding out that they're not involved in the project, rather than we ignore them and then go ahead with the project only to find out that they have a key interest and they're key stakeholders in the project, you don't know what you don't know. So yes, let's meet with them. I know it seems like it's, time wasting, but it's not. Let's have a meeting with them. If they have a keen perspective on the project, we'll involve them. If they don't, we'll thank them for their interest and we'll move along. So a lot of people have different motivations. Your project manager is looking at the time and the deliverable. You as the BA, you know that if you don't identify all your stakeholders, it can bite you in the behind. It's your responsibility. So don't let anyone, because of the sake of, time. You miss out a key person, that thing can derail your project in a horrible way. And that time saving that they thought they were doing, it'll be more than what you should have, and it'll be your fault. It'll be you, the BA. You did not identify your stakeholders. It's your responsibility. So please don't let anyone tell you, let's talk to everybody. I always, even in the meetings with them, I'll still ask them, firstly, are you the right people to be talking to with regard to this project? And is there anyone else? So you have to make sure that you cover all your perspectives. Again, that helps you mitigate risks. The risk of delay, the risk of projects, you spend all this money and you find out that you left out a key stakeholder. You don't ever want to do that because you don't know what you don't know. These people are experts at their job. They are the ones to tell you who will be involved. You don't know. That's why as a BA, you can work in any industry because we ask those questions. We don't need to know, but we know that we don't know. So we have to ask those questions so that we will know. Yeah, I know that's a lot of no, but yeah, I hope you understand what I'm saying. All right. And then obviously helps you with your requirement accuracy because you're talking to the right people and then you get to meet other stakeholders and all of that. All right, before we move over to the next part, let me stop and ask, is there any questions so far? Anything I've said that you want clarity on? No? All right, let's move on.
Uzo.
Yep.
In this scenario where your stakeholders are not in the UK, they are abroad, and their time zones are different. And one stakeholder is holding the project back. How do you manage it?
Again, you have to your stakeholder. I don't say your stakeholder is king, but you have to manage it. You have to understand what their own constraints are, what their limitations are. When you say, "Oh, I've worked with offshore teams," that's what it is. So you guys have to find out what is the best way to communicate with this stakeholder. Do you need to have meetings with them? Because if you guys have different time zones, then that may be a challenge. It may be that you can engage with them via email. So you send them an email, and then when they resume, they send you an email and back and forth and back and forth. So, or if you need to have a meeting with them, then someone will need to either get up early or stay up late. It happens. But because you know that it's an inconveniencing way to work, you only do it when it's most important. That's part of the engagement we're going to go into. Because when you've identified them and you've analyzed them, and then you have a plan for working with them, then you can now start engaging. But even with the engagement, you have to, it's not something you do on your own. So when you identify them, you ask them, what's the best way to engage with you? You're in a time zone that's how many hours ahead or how many hours behind, and blah. What is the best way to engage? They'll be the ones to tell you. Most of the time, they'll tell you, send me a message on Teams. Send me an email. I'm available this way. I'm available that way. Oh, no problem. I don't mind staying late to attend the meeting if it's important. You talk to them. It's not something you do in isolation. So each stakeholder is different. When you're talking about planning, you don't plan in isolation. You plan based on the stakeholder. So you must have spoken to them to ask them, what is the best way to reach you? What is the best way to communicate with you? Some people like emails and they respond to emails. Some people do not respond to their emails. You can email them from now to tomorrow. They're not going to respond to you. But if you send them a Teams message, they'll respond to you. Some people, if you call them for meetings, they'll come for the meeting. They may not do what it is you ask them to do. So you're now like, okay, so how do I get this person to do? You ask them. Sometimes you ask other people that know them. Yeah, we're going to get into all of that as well. But stakeholders are people. Yeah. So if you want to engage with people, you find out what works best for them and you do it that way. Okay. Does that help?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Fantastic. Awesome. So we're going to stakeholder analysis, right? So you've identified them, who they are, so you know who they are, but you now have to identify the key characteristics of each of them so you know how best to engage with them, how to influence them, how to respond to them. So this is about communication, how they're involved, and all of that. So now that you've identified them, you now have to analyze each one and you categorize them. Okay, these are the ones that have the most power and influence. These ones have the most interest. They may not have power, but if I get them on my side, they will talk about this project everywhere and get more people involved in it and get more buy-in. So it's not necessarily who has the most power. Sometimes interest is very important, because if they have interest and they know about this project, you can talk to them about this project and they can talk to other people and they can get you buy-in. Okay, so stakeholder analysis is really very important. And so for analysis, you have to consider what their interests are. What is it that matters to these people? What are their goals? What are their needs? What are their priorities? Influence, what is their ability to influence or affect the project's outcomes or direction or flow or otherwise? Power, what level of authority or control do they have? Attitude, are they positive? Are they negative? Are they the people that laugh a lot that you can joke with? Or are they very, very formal that you have to come correct? Don't be making, very unwarranted jokes with them. Expectations. What do they want to get out of this? Yeah, it's very, very important. I had a meeting with a particular stakeholder. In fact, they were having weekly meetings with the solution architect on my project. So that's why influence and interest matters, because this was a key stakeholder. They were having meetings based on the project I was a BA on, and I was always getting secondary reports from the solution architect. So there were 4 stakeholders in that meeting. One of them was the solution architect. One of them was the head of IT, a very senior role. The other 2 were also my bosses, but not in as much a senior role. But one of them was a project, I won't call her a project sponsor, but she had very good interest in my project. The other guy was the head of the department and he had influence. So they were having meetings that were talking about the project, but I wasn't part of it. This lady sent me the invite, like, Uzo, you need to be part of these meetings. And that's how they added me to the meeting. So every week I attend those meetings, and then now I'm able to hear directly what his concerns are. Because until we have his go ahead, that project is not going anywhere. It doesn't matter how the business says, we need this thing, we need this thing, we need this thing. So he's like, okay, how do we know that this project is going to address our future? He's already thinking, the organization has a 3-year plan strategy. And so he's among the people that are part of that strategy. So he wants to make sure that the project we implement today will be viable for the strategy in 3 years' time. Me, I'm looking at the project today. He's already looking at 3 years' time. Like, I don't want to bring in anything that by 3 years, we're having to change it again because it doesn't fit. So right now, we have to make sure that whatever we bring in, so I'm listening to his concerns. And I'm making sure that by the time it is that I'm talking to other stakeholders and we're looking at the recommendations or the solutions, it has to be in line with what his concerns are. If not, he will not greenlight it. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. There's no way. So every time we come to the meeting, he tells us what his issues are. During that week, I make sure that we have meetings to address everything. The next meeting we have after our meeting with him is how to address those concerns. How do we make sure that we're able to address what it is he has raised? We'll have meetings, we'll devise a strategy, we'll do all this, we'll come with a plan. And next time we're giving him a report to say, okay, that thing you talked about, this is how we're addressing it. This is what we're doing. So that's the cadence we're working on. And because of that, we thought that the project was going to be very, very quick. Like, no. Let's take a step back before we trip over ourselves. So that's how someone that has influence can affect. The people are like, we wanted this project done you know, in 3 months, in 6 months. The guy is like, I don't care if it goes to next year, but it has to meet our longer term strategic goals. So it doesn't matter what the other people need. They are the users, but he is the decision maker. He has the influence. He has the power. Until we address all his concerns and we make sure that that project meets the desired outcomes, it's not going anywhere. So, number one, because I had someone that was a champion, she recognized that I needed to be in those meetings and she pulled me in. And I was able to hear directly what the needs of the decision maker is. Number one, in my stakeholder register, his name is there very, very clearly. I keep him informed. And the way we keep him informed is the weekly meetings we have. So it's not by sending plenty email. No, we come to the meeting and we give a lowdown of what we've done, how far we're going, how we've met his concerns. That's the way we're engaging with him. You know, so all these things are nuances that you have to be very, very, when people are like, let's go this way, I'm like, no. We still have that thing that he mentioned. Until we address that thing, this project is not going anywhere. So we had to stop everything we're doing and focus on addressing that thing. And then when we did, he was now, okay, that one is resolved. He came up with another one again. So in the meeting, we're like, oh no, what else is he going to say? Oh no, you know, so, but he's a decision maker. There's nothing we can do. So yeah, that's just an example of how your different stakeholders, how you have to make sure that you engage with them and they're speaking for you when you're not even there. They're making sure they're pulling you into the right rooms and then you're listening and they're like, okay, this BA understands what we're doing and all of that. Okay. All right. So in stakeholder analysis, there's key questions you have to ask yourself. What is the stakeholder's interest in the outcome? What motivates them? What information do they want? And how do they want it? If I send this stakeholder an email, he's not going to read it. It doesn't matter. Send him a message on Teams. You and who? We have a meeting and we have a meeting for 1 hour every week and we talk and we address his needs directly and he tells us what he wants and you take your notes. It's not a recorded meeting, no. You take your notes, you make sure that you address the thing he wants. So how exactly are you engage them? What is their current opinion? Yeah. And it can change from time to time. Yeah. Who influences them? So it was when we understood that this stakeholder was driven by the 3-year plan of the organization, which we all know, but he attends meetings with the CEOs and all of that. So they are talking strategy. We were talking implementation. So that discussion has to come down to us and affect us in a particular way. So who influences the people that influence your project? Yeah. So how can you win them over? Okay. What if there's resistance? How can you get over it? So it doesn't matter how much people say, I've been in meetings where they're like, oh, just go ahead and do that thing. It's okay. I'm like, this thing's not going to work until you address those concerns. Like, no. I'm like, it's fine. Let's do this. Like, I have to be very, I have to it's negotiation. I have to make sure that I speak for what it is that we need to do. Otherwise, everyone has the what is driving them. So you as a BA, you have to make sure that you have an overview of everything, and you make sure that you use that to speak for the direction of your project, how it should go. All right. If not, people will influence you negatively and move if you don't want to talk. That's why I keep encouraging you guys to talk. You have to learn how to talk. I'm as much as an introvert as anyone, but I have to learn how to talk, because if not, it won't work well for me. All right, cool. So some tools we use are your power and interest grid, your attitude and influence. Attitude matters as well, and your stakeholder onion model. Okay, so this is an example of the power and influence grid. As you can see, it's a horizontal, vertical. You know, on the interest at the bottom, you have, okay, low interest, some interest, high interest. For the power and influence vertical line, you also have, so you have low power influence or some power and influence, high power and influence. So when high power meets low power, you watch the stakeholder. When high power meets some interest, you keep them satisfied. When high power meets high interest, You must have constant active engagements. Constant. Those are the people you have weekly meetings with, or maybe meetings 2 times a week, like constantly, actively, where they are very high influence, very high interest. You can't ignore them. They are your key stakeholders. Yeah. Then if they have low interest and low influence, you may just have to ignore them. But again, don't tell them you're ignoring them. Oh, like, you can't tell the QA that they are low on your power and interest grid. Please, oh, don't. I'm just ignoring you now. You're low. What are you? You're not. Please, no, please don't do that. I'm begging of you. Some of these things are just to help you know how to work. But don't go and tell anybody that they are low influence and low interest. So therefore, you're ignoring them. But basically, you have only so much time. You can't really keep everyone. So sometimes you just add them onto the email, and they're fine. It's fine. Anyway, we're moving on. So some hints to help you. This is another form, another grade, right? Like I keep telling you, there are many different ones. Okay, so it's just, they call it power and influence. One is the power, the other is the interest. Low high. This one doesn't have some, it just has low high. So I like minimal effort. I don't like that ignore one. I prefer minimal effort. So keep informed, keep satisfied, keep players. So for your keep satisfied quadrants, that's high, low, high power, low interest. So you have to keep them satisfied. Yeah. Once they're satisfied, you're okay. You engage with them, you consult with them. If their level of interest increases, you have to move them to another quadrant. So you too. So you just have to keep an eye on them and make sure they're satisfied. They're your key players, high power, high interest people, full engagement. Manage them well. Manage them. These are the people that I said, this person said this, so therefore that's what we're doing. Involve them in key project decisions. Sometimes, even if you're not involving them, you tell them this is what we're doing and this is why we did it. You said this, so because of that we did this. So it's not like they are making every decision. You don't have to invite them to make decisions for you. They'll make the decision. So if they don't make decisions, then you now tell them this is why I made that decision. So they know that you're basically considering what their ideas are and where they're going, and you engage with them regularly. Low priority. So these guys have low power and low interest. You monitor them, but don't bore them too much. Every now and then, when they're interested, when it is required, you send them information. Otherwise, yeah, if you need to move them to another quadrant, then fine. But yeah, don't bother them too much. They will even tell you that it's okay. You don't need to be sending me all these emails. It's not that deep. So yeah, these other ones are low power, but they're very interested. Okay, so make sure you keep talking to them to make sure that they're not, they can be these people are if you have these people as your champions, they'll make your life easier for you. So make use of their interest. All right, consult with them. They can be a fountain of knowledge. Okay, they can be like I said, your supporters, your ambassadors. Yeah, so just keep them informed, keep talking to them. You never know when something will drop that you really need. All right, cool. All right, so we're moving to stakeholder engagement. Remember, you identify, you analyze, you plan, and then you start engaging. Okay, so these are just some principles of engagement. Okay, there's no need having a plan and you don't put it into practice. That's what engagement is. You've done all the hard work, now you're putting it to work. Okay, so these help you build strong relationships with the stakeholders. Okay, so once you do this, you're reducing your risks, you're encouraging collaboration, you're making sure that the outcomes you want are delivered smoothly. All right, so these are some of them. Identify them early, understand what their needs and expectations are, build trust and credibility, communicate with them. I know it says clearly and often, but remember your grade though. So if they're not part of the people you communicate often, and don't communicate with them often. Communication is your responsibility. So don't be waiting for them to reach out to you. Engage with people. All right. I love the tailor your approach. People are different. You talk to them or you engage with them differently. It's not a one size fits all. One will not work for the other. You have to understand the stakeholders you're working with. And how do you understand them? You can ask them, or you can ask people that have worked with them for a while, or people that know them. What works for this person? What's the best way to, what's this person like? Yeah. And how do they like to be, how are they to work with on a project? Have you worked with them before? What are they like? All those sorts of things. Once you're open, people will talk to you. Okay. So honestly, I really think, I know that being a BA, it looks like we talk a bit. Yeah, it looks like we do. Yeah, we do a bit, but not as much as a lot of some other roles, maybe Scrum Masters and a lot of other roles. But we listen. So when we're able to listen, people talk to us. And you need that information. Be a BA that people talk to, because you need it. Don't stop people from talking to you. If it's information you don't need, let it go. If it's information you need, apply to your project. Okay? So listen and respect input. Honestly, I didn't even see that I've delivered this before, so maybe I did unconsciously. But yeah, be very grateful when people give you their input. Please, 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 please. Don't stop information coming to you. It's so important. If people are willing to talk, most of the time you will find it difficult to get people to talk. People are busy. They don't have the time. So if you get 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour from one person's time, respect it. Listen to them. Listen more than you talk. If you're going to talk, ask them open-ended questions that will draw information from them, and then keep quiet and let them talk. Okay? Be open and transparent. Yeah? You can find out what the office agenda is, but please try not to have an agenda, because if you do, then people will find it very difficult to talk to you. Being a BA, we don't have any allegiance. We are very open to everybody. So everybody should be able to talk to you. If you make yourself difficult to talk to, it will affect your project. Okay? And then when conflict happens, you know how to handle it, right? One of the main interview questions you're going to get is, how do you handle a difficult stakeholder? How do you handle a challenging stakeholder? How do you manage conflicts between stakeholders? Those are some of the very, very popular interview questions. You will get at least one. At the very least, you get one of those questions, because it's part of our job. We have to manage conflict. When you're dealing with people, there will always be conflict. So you have to know how to negotiate, manage people. You can do it by understanding them. Okay. Then you review and adapt your engagement strategy. If it's not working, you change it. Please don't keep sending people email. They're not responding to your email. You send them the first one, they don't respond. You send them, reminder, gentle reminder. This is a gentle reminder that you are yet to respond to this email that I sent to you. Could you please review it and get back to me? Nobody answers you. You find another way. You go to Teams. Hello, 𝐂𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓, how are you? I sent you a couple of emails, last week and earlier this week. I wanted to confirm that you received it. Have you received it? And then if they keep quiet there, that one is another matter. Who do you know that they talk to? I mean, the person say, I've been trying to reach this person. Is everything okay? Are they all right? Are they on holiday? Blah, 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 blah. I sent them a couple of emails and they didn't respond. How exactly do I reach out to them? And they'll tell you, this is the way, this is the way, this is what you do. And then if you have a really nice, supportive team, they'll even tell you, I'm actually friends with the person. Let me send them a message to say that and they'll help you. Before you know it, the person, maybe they copy you, or the person just responds and says, sorry, this email got lost in something. I'm like, no problem, it's fine. As long as you responded, no problem. So yeah, always change your strategy if it's not working. So the engagement process is very structured, very repeatable, and it's a step-by-step approach, or a way that BAs can, again, remember the life cycle, identify, analyze, engage, and maintain relationships throughout the project life cycle. The project has its life cycle. Stakeholder management has its own life cycle. Everything has its own life cycle. So identify what the life cycle is that you're doing and follow that one. So, all right. Again, Engagement is really good because it keeps your stakeholders involved, keeps them informed, make sure that they're empowered. If that project ever comes up, they know what is happening with it. They know, you carry them along, and you make sure it's aligned to the business needs. Remember, it's aligned to the business need. It has to be aligned to the objectives you're going to achieve. So you as a BA, make sure you manage expectations, you build trust, collaboration. If there's resistance, you identify it, you reduce it or remove it, and then you are able to support and receive support for what you're doing as well. All right, so challenges. I think there are 2 slides with challenges and difficult stakeholders. So this is the first one. You are going to encounter challenges. It's inevitable. You can't run away from it. You're going to. All right. So the best thing is to prepare, right? You have to understand what those are and know how to respond to them so you can deal with them whenever they arise. Okay. If you don't know what the stakeholders' expectations are, you can run into issues, right? So for a project I was working on, we would send out, we had been working on the project for a while. We didn't know that there were some stakeholders we hadn't involved. So by the time we recognized that, we now start reaching out to them to like, oh, this is the project we're working on, blah, 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 blah. Next thing, we start getting some response like, have you spoken to this person yet? Please speak to them or speak to them. It wasn't like this. This is just me, but I'm just trying to explain the tone of the emails we're getting. Please, you need to speak to this person, involve them. They need to be involved in this project. When we now come for the project, come for our meeting, we maybe have like a meeting of a number of stakeholders, maybe it's like a workshop or something. Among the first things we'll be hearing is, we're not aware of this project. We're not aware of this project at all. We have to make sure that the processes we have in place, we maintain them. We have to maintain the process. In my mind, I was like, well, who said we're not going to maintain the processes we have in place? No, we have to make sure that we maintain the process. Okay, you need to speak to this other person. By the time it happened the first time, second time, I was like, wait, what's happening? We had another meeting because they'll keep telling us, go and meet this person. Have you talking to this? You have to meet them. You have to, I was like, it's okay, it's fine. It was almost like we were trying to actively ignore them. And we're like, that's not what we're doing. By the time it happened the second time, with the meeting with the project manager, because she would lead some of the meetings, just introduce the project, I told her, it seems like there is a preconception that this project is going to affect certain things that they are doing at the moment, and they are very, very concerned. Please, before we start introducing this project, make it clear that this project is a standalone project. It is meant to integrate with what they already do. It is not going to affect what they all do at all. The only reason we're engaging them is because it's going to integrate with what they already do. So we just want to make sure that it integrates properly, but it's not going to affect anything they do. Do you know that when this lady, the PM, said this thing, the whole attitude changed? The lady was like, hey, I was worried. This lady started laughing. She came for the project. Her face was strong. She was the head of all the people that were like, have you talked to, she had a tech department. She had a legal department under her. She had many people under her. It was like, talk to this lady, talk to these other people. They're very, The lady was like, no. By the time she came, her face was strong. By the time the project manager said that, she visibly calmed down and started laughing. Like, oh, okay, we were not sure. We actually thought that it would change. We're like, no. It has nothing. Do you know, that thing just changed everything we're doing. And we were now able to integrate with them, talk with them very easily. She was very forthcoming. She was giving us ideas. Why don't you do it this way? Why don't you do that? So you have to be very careful about what stakeholder expectations are. Make sure you understand it and you address it. Okay? So conflicting interests, some people want the project, some people don't want the project. How do you manage it all? Even if they both want the project, someone wants this out of it, someone wants that out of it. You cannot have both. You can have either or. So how do you manage that situation? Resistance to change. Some people like what they like. They don't like change, and your project is going to cause change. What if the project was actually supposed to change what they were supposed to do? Yeah. At that point, you find that lady will resist. You will have a strong resistance from her, and then it's not trickled down to all her people. So that is a major risk. So you have to even address it before it happens. So we're happy that our project did not change it. But what if the project was to change it? Because sometimes projects change what people do. So you have to be aware of all of that. You have to identify your relevant stakeholders. I've told you about a situation where we struggle to do that. Miscommunication or lack of communication. Oh, this project has been going. We have to tell them that the project has not been going on. No, we're just doing discovery. Please don't feel like we've ignored you. They're like, this project has been on for a long time. Nobody involved us. We're like, no. We hadn't gotten to the stage of involving stakeholders. Now we're at that stage. So that's why we're reaching out to you. So please don't feel like we've ignored you. Yeah, because there's that feeling as well. Limited stakeholder availability. You need this resource, but everybody is busy. We needed like data stakeholders. They are very busy because everybody wants them. So we had to wait until one person was available and, all of that. So you have to manage all those situations. Cultural or departmental differences. You come into a place, they have a particular office culture, or there's a way that department runs. You have to be very aware of it. People are different. If you change departments or you're dealing with different departments, it's not a one size fits all. Okay. Poor conflict resolution. You have to know how to resolve conflict. So you have to learn all these things. They're part of the skills we have as BAs. Misalignment with business objectives. You have to be very aware of this one. When people want heaven and earth, you have to let them know this is not in scope. This doesn't really align. Toss here and no further. This is where we're stopping. We can't go further than this. This is how much leeway we have for this project. So you always have to make sure that your requirements align with, or even the stakeholder expectations. They have to align with the business objectives. You have to let them know. Okay. Not reviewing or updating the strategy. Remember, it changes regularly, so you have to keep monitoring it. Okay, cool. Any questions before we move to the next slide? Any questions? No? All right, let's move on. Some helpful tips and tricks. Again, you have to know what works for your stakeholder, right? And be very quick to adapt. So you have to be a jack of all trades to everybody. Okay. Talk to them, how, listen to their tone of voice, how they talk, how they like to relate to you. Like I said, some people are very jovial, they're very funny, they tell, how are your kids, they're all very, sociable. Some people just come and it's straight to business, they don't have time. So when you're saying, oh, how is everything, you're like, why are you wasting my time? So you have to, understand your stakeholders. Again, that's part of it. Do they have a nice sense of humor that you can engage with? Do that. If they don't, please don't. You just annoy them. Be adaptable. Be if it's business-like, if whatever it is, adapt to it. Email engagement. Some people are very informal. Hi, it's Olu here. How are you? How's your day going? The people are very, very straight to the point. So match them. Okay, be a mirror as a BA. Okay, build trust with all of them. Okay, and then you have to be mindful of their other activities. Remember, your project is not the only thing they're doing. Okay, so you always have to be very mindful of their time and what they're doing. Be prepared to listen. I've told you about that. Be open. Talk to them about things that will build trust and rapport. Again, ask people who've worked with them. I've said all these things. Ask them how they like to work. All of that. Okay. Some people, if you are working in an office, some people don't walk up to the desk to you and talk to you. Some other people, if you do that, they won't like it because you're disrupting their chain of thought. So you almost want to send them a message to say, oh, can I come over for 5 minutes? Oh, yeah, come over. Or, you schedule a meeting with them. They don't just want. So people are like, why are you sending me an email now? Is that on my desk over there? Walk into my office, I beg. That kind of thing. So you have to deal with them according to how they like to be dealt with. Okay. So this is part of the engagement process. Again, identify how they like to be engaged with. I said how what access do you have to them, or assess, the relationship and how they like to be spoken to and all of that. Create a plan, engage with them. And again, is that whole life cycle again, you monitor or you maintain it. Okay. It's another cycle. Okay. And then for tools and techniques. Okay. So you have to have the right tools and techniques for all these different things I've talked about: analysis, identification, communication, engagement, monitoring, all of that, right? So these are some of the tools we use. We use the stakeholder plan. I've told you what that is. Once you finish analyzing, you create your plan, all right? This is our plan of how to deal with them or engage with them. What's their register? Their names, their email addresses, their job title, their location, if they're offshore. So people that are dealing with them will know that sending this person an email by this time, they won't be able to respond until they come to work. Your stakeholder map, your RACI, that's the RACI with an S I told you about, your communication plan, all of that. And then all those activities, communication and engagement activities that you do. All right, so this is an example of the plan. Okay, so who is the stakeholder? Ministry of, these are all obviously external stakeholders, right? Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Infrastructure, traditional chiefs, blah, 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 blah. This is just an example. Yeah, so it's not relevant to anything, but you can see that they've identified the areas of influence. So for the Ministry of Environment, regulatory compliance, environmental working, project fees, or everything, right? Stakeholder manager, all of that. So these are the different categories and they filled it in. So it's vital. Once you've identified all of it, you have to create a plan and people will follow, all right? They've already said engagement tools, face-to-face emails, newsletter, all of that. This is just an example, obviously. So again, like I said, it aligns who your stakeholders are, what their level of influence is, communication preferences, how best to engage with them throughout the life cycle. So what phase, all or some or none. Then this is your RACI matrix. Like I said, I've been talking about a matrix before, right? So you use it to clarify the different roles and responsibilities, all right? So who does what? What is the task? What is the responsibility? So who is responsible for it? Excuse me. So who is responsible for it? Who is accountable for it? Who is to be consulted? And who is to be informed? For each of those tasks, you have each of these categories, right? And that way you make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. So there's no duplication of effort, nothing is left out, no ball is dropped, there's no confusion as to who is doing what, and everyone understands what their role is and where they have ownership. So again, the R is the person responsible. So the A is the person accountable and responsible. Make sure you don't mix them up. Yeah. So responsible is who is the person doing the thing. Accountable is who is the person who has the overall responsibility over it. Let me give you an example. Yeah. Managing your product backlog. The product owner is the one accountable, but the BA is the one responsible for it. So the person who owns the responsibility of the product backlog, that's why your PO can tell you, move this over here, put this here, this goes into this sprint, this goes into that sprint. But who is actually the person doing it is the BA. So the PO is accountable, but the BA is the one responsible. Consulted, informed, all of that. Consulted, you have your QAs and your Scrum Masters and all of that. They are the ones you can consult them on certain things. Again, it depends on the task. Yeah. Once you identify what the task is, then once you understand these different roles or responsibilities, then you're able to say, this is the person responsible for it. This is the person accountable. And none of these things, remember, again, I love being a BA because I'm the one creating a lot of these things, but it's not coming from me. So when I do all these things, I will still go back to the stakeholder to say, is this correct? Did I get it right? All the people that I said responsible, are you actually the one responsible? If you're not, then let's put the right person. So you always go back to all these stakeholders. You're not doing it because, oh, I know. You don't know. So you can guess, or you can get the information from your stakeholders, which is actually preferable. But if you have an idea of some of the tasks, you can start with that, put them down. You're talking about a particular process. You know the tasks associated with that process. So you can start putting them down. You may not know all of them, but you may know some. So you start. Yeah. They call it a starter for 10. So you don't just come with a blank document and say, yeah, people should give me information. You've been a part of the project. So you have an idea of some of the things that are there, but nobody is expecting you to have the final say. So you still call all those people that are you've put in this your RACI and people that should know and say, okay, this is what I've done so far. I know I didn't capture all the roles and responsibilities, but these are the ones I've captured so far. Can we go through to make sure that they're the correct roles? And if there's anyone I left out, you can add. They'll be telling you, be adding. Okay. Now, for the ones I've identified, these are the people I've put as responsible. Is that correct? Oh, no. This person should be accountable. You move it around. Nobody is expecting you to know everything, but you start with it and then you call them to the meeting and show them what you've done so far, and then they'll update it, iterate it, all of that. All this is engagement plan. Some people may tell you, send it to me. I'll work on it. I don't have time to come for your meeting, but if you send me the document, I'll work on it. Some other people, you send it to them, they won't work on it until you say, okay, let's have a RACI update meeting or something, and you call them, then you pull up your RACI and then you show it to them, and in that meeting everybody's saying, yes, I'm the one responsible. No, I'm not the one responsible. Is this other person? Oh. And most of the time you put the role responsible. Yeah. So let me give you an example. So let's say your PO for this project is Uzo or Janet, right? And Janet has to leave, and maybe Femi takes her place. If you put Janet as the person responsible, then you have a problem because Janet has left. So what's going to happen? But Janet is responsible because she's the product owner. So if you put the role of the product owner, you can say product owner. At the moment, the product owner is Janet, so you know the person's name. But the role responsible is product owner. So it doesn't matter if Janet leaves, someone else becomes product owner, the person will take on that responsibility, because that person's responsibility, that person is taking on the responsibility of the product owner, and that role or that responsibility is for the product owner role. So even if you're going to add names, don't just put names there. Put the person's role. Why is that person responsible for this task? Because they are in the office of the head of marketing or the head of IT or whatever. So if someone else ever leaves that position and someone else takes that position, you're still fine, because the role is the one responsible, not necessarily the person. I hope you understand the distinction. Do you guys understand that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Awesome. All right. We're almost done.
Uzo?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to find out.
Sure.
Are these Scrum Masters that are meant to conduct a RACI matrix or the BAs?
It's the BAs. It depends. Okay. It depends. I don't know how else to say that it depends. It goes from project to project, but creating RACI matrix part of our role. Do you know why? Because we create the stakeholder matrix, and your stakeholder matrix is directly responsible for your RACI. If the Scrum Masters want to take on the responsibility, oh, that's fine. But most of the time, you find out that they will do it in conjunction with you. Nobody really does it on their own, so they can start it and then you do it. But for the sake of knowledge, yeah, anything you see or hear, make sure you do it. Make sure you start it. Most times, if you have a very good relationship with either your product manager, product owner, or project manager, or whatever, sometimes both of you can decide, like, oh, I know you're doing quite a lot, let me do it. Or, oh no, it's fine, I'm happy to do it. So, but both people know how to do it. It's just like wireframes. Different roles know how to do it. But if you find that you need it for your project, You know how to do it. So you don't say, oh, we need a RACI, whatever, Scrum Master, do it. No, pull it up and do it. Pull it up and do it. I know of BAs that draft roadmaps, because even though it's supposed to be for the agile delivery manager, the agile delivery manager has not done it. When you do it, nobody takes that knowledge from you. So do it, and you can even do it and give it to the agile delivery manager and say, okay, I've done it. It's your knowledge, and then you put it on your CV. And when they ask you, have you ever done it? You say, yes, I've done it. Knowledge is your knowledge. So it makes you a better person. Yeah. So again, it depends on the project. Different people can do it, but a RACI is a RACI. If you know how to do it, you do it. But honestly, RACIs in most of the projects I've been in, I've been the one creating the RACI. And even if I didn't start it, most of the time they hand it over to me to run. Most of the time I start it, but most of the time they're like, because it requires stakeholders. A RACI, you can't do a RACI without stakeholders. And stakeholder management is is what we do. No other role does stakeholder management. RACI is directly part of stakeholder management. So even if another role does it, most of the time they'll do it in connection with you, the BA, because it's as you can see, it's a stakeholder management tool. Yeah, so that's why I keep saying it's a RACI. So you as the BAs, don't say, that's what a lot of things I've seen. I've seen that a lot of times they're like, oh, this person has already done this thing, so I'm not going to do it. No, don't do that. Number one, you shouldn't be in a position to move tasks over to everybody else. Try your hand at everything, because it's your knowledge and no one can take that away from you. But if you're ever in the position where you have to do something, you can't say, oh, in my last project, it was the Scrum Master that did it, I don't know how to do it. No, you can't do it. Put it in your back pocket and it's like, yeah, I know how to do it. If you need me to do it, I'll do it. If you want to do it, go ahead. I don't mind. Fine, no problem. But it is part of, it's a stakeholder management tool, and no other role does stakeholder management. They'll need to understand it all, but it's a BA role. It's a BA responsibility. Okay, so that's the reason I say RACI is actually the BA's responsibility. I hope that answered your question in a roundabout way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. All right, so this is the second one I was talking about. Difficult stakeholders. The other one was challenging. The reasons why stakeholder management can be challenging. Now, these are the people themselves. When you're dealing with a difficult person, how do you deal with a difficult stakeholder? Number one is not to call them difficult stakeholders. A lot of times they ask you, have you ever dealt with a difficult stakeholder? In my response, I'm like, I've dealt with challenging stakeholders. But again, you have to understand that a lot of people don't just want to be difficult. There's a reason why. So you as a BA, don't come with the mindset, I should have put, brackets in difficult. But yeah, I personally never call them difficult stakeholders, but a lot of job descriptions and a lot of interview questions, they say difficult stakeholders, but I always change it in my answer. So don't treat a stakeholder as an obstacle. Don't do that, or a hindrance, or this person is difficult. There's usually a reason why they're difficult. So there's something happening. There's something happening. So if you as a BA, especially if it has to do with their job, and you find a way to solve that thing, they will love you forever. I'm telling you. So don't, if everybody else says this person is difficult, they're really hard to work with, for some reason, one of my managers in the past, she always come in and she's like, what do you think about this person? This person is my boss, so my boss. Like, the person she's asking me about is my Oga, someone I'm working with. I was like, do you want it to come out of my mouth that this person is difficult? Like, no. I actually think that, they're very insightful and they're very like, what do you think of the leadership style? I'm like, what do you want from me? Do you want me to say that this person is hard to work with? You will never hear from my mouth. Me, never. I don't care. Like, no. There's usually, actually, if sometimes, he's talking about a particular thing, but you know that he's coming, I can see where he's coming from. I will find a spin around it. You will till tomorrow. She's like, oh, you're so positive. You're so this, you're so that. You want me to be gossiping with you about my boss? You're joking. Even if so, at the point, I'm like, have you found him to be? It's like, why are you asking? Like, have you worked with him before? How has he been to work with for you? Of course, she probably knew I wouldn't say anything, so she didn't say anything back to me. She just went, "Oh, I'm just curious. I just want to know." You will. I know there's some people that once you give them the opening, say, "Oh, he's so hard to work with every time. He's so demanding." You will never hear it from my mouth. Number one, I'm a BA. I have to work with you. Why am I going to now pour sansan in my own Gary? No way. I can't do that. I will not do that. I will find there's a reason why you're challenging to work with. And if I could only resolve that thing, which is actually my job to do, I'll find that you're the most easy person to work with. Yeah. So please, that's what I think anyway. I'm probably in the minority, but that's how I think. So some of them are resistant to change. There's a reason why. They are not engaging with you for some reason. There's always a reason why. Strong conflicting opinions and agendas, micromanagement and over involvement. That's actually a pet peeve of mine, but I try very hard. Like, people are just, they just want to micromanage. Yeah, but it's fine. Poor communication, misalignment, high influence but negative attitude. All these things are things you probably will encounter, and you have to know how to address them. So these are some practical strategies, because I don't want to tell you the difficulty and not tell you how to, resolve it. So listen, empathize, just stay your course. Remember your objective. Oh, don't get sidetracked. Make sure you tailor the communication to suit them. If there's poor communication, they're probably not using the right communication for them. Involve them early. I told you of the people that thought we had moved along and we didn't involve them early, and we had to tell them that we did, because it can set people off. Set clear expectations. So this mountain that you're looking for is actually a hill. So please, bring it down. Or you think it's not going to be this good, look at what we're trying to do, kind of like thing, that kind of thing. If you need help, escalate. You may not be able to resolve everything at your level, so no one is expecting you to resolve everything. If you've tried what you know how to do, you escalate. You tell someone that this is difficulty you're having, and brainstorm some solutions, or they could even help you sort it out. And then remember to build your alliances. Who are your champions? Who are your supporters? Remember, a lot of times they're in rooms that you're not. So if you get them on your side, they'll speak on your behalf. Okay. All right. So I was going to show you examples of templates. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah. Hi, Uzo.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks for all you said. I was just wondering, 2 questions. You mentioned after identifying the stakeholders, right, and you're trying to engage with them, you did mention that these meetings are not recorded and you have to switch on and listen. Yeah, so I'm wondering how, in real life situations, in the real job scenario, how long do these meetings run for that you can't record it? And could you secretly put your phone on and just record so you don't miss any information? Then
okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, secondly, when as a BA you've done all these documentations like the RACI matrix and all that, do you put them on maybe a tool like Azure DevOps or whatever tool the organization is using in maybe your BA repository or something, or is it kept personally for you? Yeah, so those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the second one first, because I think it might be the easiest one. They're both easy anyway, but let me just start with that one. Most of the project artifacts, that's what they're called, the artifacts. Most of the project artifacts that we create are for the project. They're not for you. So always establish, once you come on board, where are we storing our documentation? Is it on SharePoint? Do we have a shared folder? Whatever it is, whatever the tool is. If it's Azure DevOps, maybe it's your wiki on Azure DevOps, then fine. But wiki is not really a project, a project, what do they call it? Information management, project information management tool. It's you put certain things there, but when we're talking about proper artifacts, is usually a lot of people use SharePoint, Microsoft, all of that. So shared folders and all of that. So, but you establish what it is. Sometimes you may have to create the folder. Sometimes there's already a folder. So once you create the artifact, you put it there. If you're doing it in conjunction with your project manager or your P or whatever, once you're done with it, you share the link to them. And then sometimes you even find that further down the line, so it's like, oh, I need this thing. You're like, oh, okay, I have a report, or I have a gap analysis, or I have a BRD, or I have a stakeholder matrix or whatever. The one of the documents I'm using at work, I'm working on it with the project manager. So we both have sight on it. And on there, we have all our stakeholders. And then we have, their roles and all of that. And because we're in the elicitation phase, the different columns are, yes, we've elicited. Firstly, yes, this is a stakeholder whom we need to elicit requirements from, and we've done that, or we haven't done that. So what's that status? Have they reviewed it? Yes or no? Have they signed off on it? Yes or no? So it's all those different things where you kind of keep track of it, and then you have it in a shared space. So even though right now it's just the project manager, maybe the project team comes, whatever it is, whoever needs to have access to it has access to it. So most of the time, our documentation is for the project. It's not for us. Okay, so just have that at the back of your mind.
Okay.
Then for the second question, you have that meeting is an anomaly. It's almost like a strategy meeting. So it's not really a project meeting where you're like elicitation or anything. All those elicitation and demos and all those things, I record them. But again, I basically tell them I'm going to record. Don't record people without their knowledge. Basically, it's not done. So that meeting is like you're reporting. So you're basically giving updates and you're getting feedback back. So there's really no need. It's not such a detailed meeting that like a lot of things are being discussed. Oh, this is where we are in the project. This is why we're here. Oh, have you done this? Oh, this is what we've done, blah, blah. So it's like a back and forth. So it's not really something that you need to, that is so much information that you can't keep track of. If they tell you this and this and this is what we're going to do, normally something you can take notes on. And then if you're not sure, you can respond to say, okay, thank you for your time. This is the discussion. These are the key takeaways or the key decision, that were made. This is what this person is going to do. Uzo is going to do this. Laura is going to do this. This other person is going to do this. Augusta is going to do that. And then you send it so you can make sure that you capture the right thing. So as a BA, don't lose your ability to take notes as well. But this particular kind of meeting is not information heavy. It's mainly a reporting meeting where you're like, okay, I want to update you on what's happening. And then they'll now tell you, okay, this is what we're doing. Have you progressed so far? Oh no, there are delays here. Why are there delays there? We reached out to them and this is what they said. So it's not like a whatever meeting, but because of his position and the kind of things he's suggesting, they're not things you ignore. So if he tells you, we're supposed to go for an RFP, request for proposal. Let's not do that just yet. Let's do this instead. It's a clear instruction. And okay, this is why I'm asking you to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Why don't we have A, B, C, D? You just give you very quick, instruction. So it's not like it's something you can't take notes on and action. And like I said, a way to make sure that you've captured everything is you just feedback on the group to say, this is what I got from the meeting. These were the discussions. These are the takeaways. This is what I'm going to do by the next meeting. And if you miss out on anything, you can just put there at the bottom. If there are any notes or comments, or if I left anything out, please feel free to add. Then someone will say, oh, yes, you forgot this, or this person said this. Most of the time they don't, but you give them that option. So that's not that kind of meeting. There are other meetings where it's like, this is a full-on requirements meeting. I have 3, 5, 10 different stakeholders. Everybody's talking. I'm not a computer now. We're recording it though. We're recording it. So there's no two ways about that. Even if I'm sharing my screen and I'm typing the requirements as they're talking, I could miss something. And then is that thing where you're like, sorry, what did you say again? What did you say? Most of the time I'm like, I have it recorded, so I don't need them to repeat it, because we just have an hour. If they are repeating and they are typing, I'm taking notes based on how fast I type. We'll never leave here today, and we won't get a lot out of it. So it depends on the meeting. I was at a particular meeting where we had an external stakeholder as well. So it was a demo. They were demoing their product to us. And I was like, oh, this person is not available. Is it okay if you record? And we're like, no, we rather you didn't. We are sharing some proprietary, confidential information. We'd rather you didn't. We would rather come back and do another demo for you when the people are there than for you to record. So I'm like, okay, no problem. That's fine. I understand. So it's those sorts of things where you have to, it was a demo, they're demoing their product to us, they will just talk to us, we'll ask questions. If we could have recorded it, we'll record it and share it with people that were not at that meeting, but they said, I would rather come back, and we're like, okay, fine. In fact, by the time we finished the meeting, we told them, okay, we're going to arrange another demo and invite some other people to come, and they're like, yeah, no problem, that's fine. So it depends. Once you tell people, I hope you don't mind if I record it, if they have a problem, they'll tell you. If it's not that kind of meeting, you don't have to record every meeting. But if it's an information heavy meeting that you have to actually get all the details, then you have to, and they would understand if you record anyway. Yeah. Right. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, so I'll do this really quickly. I don't want to keep you guys beyond the time. Let me share my screen again. I just want to show you guys some templates, because a lot of times when as BAs, your organization may not have the template you need for your job. So you have to be very good at doing research and getting templates that work for you. So this is a stakeholder map. Yeah, you have your legend here. So you already know that your green is an advocate, your yellow is neutral, your red is a blocker, and you have a legend here. Like I said, as BAs, we get we get clever sometimes. So you can even have your legend on another worksheet, but you know that number one is Joe. Joe is a blocker. You're going to have to find a way to sort that out and move him to another quadrant. Stefan is 4. There's 2, and where's even 1? I think I missed out on 1. But you have, 1 is Joe. So you have your 2, your 3, and your 4. So this is an example of a stakeholder map. Let me come to this one. So this one I like a lot. Yeah. This is another stakeholder map. You have your level of interest and your level of power and influence. But what happens here is you're basically assigning people numbers. So if your project sponsor, Mr. Tayo, is 1010, he already know that he's a project sponsor and he's on a high quadrant. But if you reduce it to, for example, a 5 and a 2, see, your Mr. Tayo has come to the bottom now because you reduce his level of influence. So if you have this as a legend on your street, you don't even have to say someone is low or someone is high. It's here that you have level of influence and you assign numbers. So you can share this with your project team and no one will get upset with you, because you won't have anything that says this person is low, ignore them, this person is this person is that. You just assign numbers to people based on their level of interest and their level of whatever, and automatically it sorts itself in the grid. So this is another kind of your stakeholder map. Then the last thing I'm going to share with you is your stakeholder analysis document. So you have all your stakeholders, you have their job title, business areas, email address, you have their level of influence. Are they a priority? Are they an SME? Are they a subject matter expert because you need them for a particular thing? Are they a decision maker? What's your frequency of communication? How are you going to communicate with them? In person, email, blah, blah, blah. You already have what's their commitment level? Is it current or is it required? Do you understand? And you basically do all of that here. So there are many different kinds. Honestly, it's not a one size fits all. You can start with this and add different columns as you need. Yeah, but whether is your analysis or your map or whatever it is, it has to be fit for purpose. What information do you need? And what information does the stakeholder analysis document or artifact contain? All right, so these are just a few. If you go online, you'll find so many others. All right, so that's just some quick examples, which is why I keep telling you guys all these glossaries that you guys are showing. Those are not glossaries. Go and find glossaries, please. Project worthy glossaries, and then use them. Those aren't proper glossaries, please. All right, finally, we're almost done. I think we have one more slide to go through, which is your task. Let me share my screen. Yeah. So we've been asked to give you guys tasks for every tutorial. So your task, again, like I said, I don't want to give you additional tasks other than what you're doing at the moment. So I won't create like a scenario. You can use your project to create your task. So identify your stakeholders. I know it says key here, but identify all the stakeholders involved in your project, right? You need to understand what their needs are, level of influence, power, all of that. Then once you've done that, create a stakeholder map or matrix, up to you. And then you develop your RACI matrix. So those are your tasks for this class. And then one more time with 2 minutes to spare. Although if you want to stay longer, I'm happy to. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Ijoma, can you hear me? Hello?
Hi. Ijoma, can you hear him?
Yes. Ezekiel, yes, I can
I've
hear
got,
you.
okay, I've got 2 in 1 question. So the number 1 is, I know you are giving us all these trainings, and well, thank you very much for them and the times you are sacrificing to be there for us. So the first question I want to ask is, what if you are the one recruiting a BA? What are your expectations for a BA? Maybe we are in an interjob interview. What are your expectations or the things you are going to be asking us or asking the BA? And the second one is, how can one be an outstanding BA? I know it's not what you did today, but
I was going to say, like, you read my mind. I was like, what has that got to do with what we're doing today? All right, cool. Let me, before I come to that, pause on that, because I'm going to ask, I don't know if you want to record it, because I'm going to ask for them to stop, because the training is the training. So if no one has any questions based on the training, we can stop recording. So thank you thank you guys so much for listening. I'll answer your question, Ezekiel, but yeah, so if you have any questions, you can still ask. No other questions?